Well, hello, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Our next trolley stop is here, and our next trolley stop is now. Welcome back to another all-new episode of PR from the Heart's Children's Book Spotlight Series. To be precise, we have reached episode number 256. That's right, little man. We have reached the 256th trolley stop here at the Children's Book Spotlight Series here at PR from the Heart. My name is John Masiulionis, the manager of PR from the Heart and the host of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, along with the author of the new award-winning children's book, Walking Each Other Home, Zachary's Mission, a Hospice for Children, published by Trolley Stop Publishing, joined as always each and every Trolley Stop by my faithful furry friend and forever companion, little Forrest, who is always on cue. He knows exactly when and where and how to chime in. And he is not only my faithful furry friend and forever companion in this journey called life, but little Forrest also reminds me that he is my co-host on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Ever notice when you have pets, especially dogs, if you're not giving them 100% of your attention, they let you know? Could be 99.9%, but nope, not enough in any way, shape, and form. We're really excited to spend some quality time with all of you, and we thank you for spending some quality time with us and turning in kind here in our neighborhood. We're really excited about this particular episode of the Children's Book Spotlight Series because, over the course of the last 7 years that we have been doing this program, anytime that we can provide some tangible, useful information for our fellow friends and neighbors who are moving through some form of challenge or challenging season in their life, in the words of our favorite neighbor, Mr. Rogers, it really is such a good feeling. And especially if you're watching this episode of the Children's Book Spotlight Series in real time, it could look like there are multiple challenges, plural, so to speak. And it's interesting, in the midst of having so much divisiveness in the world, so much hatred, so much anger, so much the opposite of rainbows and gumdrops energy, we always ask ourselves, what is it that we can do? And I feel that in many respects, oftentimes we tend to overcomplicate things. And it doesn't need to be that complicated. But if you're wondering, okay, if you're really in the midst of this and you're wondering, okay, what is the secret sauce? How can we do our part to move through these challenging times? How can we get through to the other side? You know what the answer is? Helping others. I know. Brain pop emoji, right? And leave it to a brand new children's book. And of all things, a shrew to help us remember that helping others really is the best medicine. How helping others, when you focus on the we instead of the what's in it for me, then we have the ability to move further in life and really see our fellow neighbors on our path get to where it is that they want to be as well too. And especially if you have a scooter in the mix and you can really get to where it is that you want to be. We're kind of jumping a little bit ahead, but again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to the official website of our featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. He is no stranger to the program. You can also head on over to Amazon.com. If that is your preferred online vehicle of your choosing, you can purchase, read, and enjoy your copies of Piccolo. It is now available, courtesy of our friends and neighbors at Christy Ottaviano Books, which is, of course, an imprint of Little Brown Books for Young Readers. If Amazon.com is your preferred vehicle, online vehicle of your choosing, you can leave a 5-star review for Piccolo. That lets our featured guest here in the Children's Book Spotlight Series know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite children's bookstore, your favorite independent bookstore, or your favorite local library, they are the pillars of our community, and that they do not stock their copies of Piccolo, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Again, to be precise, episode number 256. And of course, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can do your part to help your students. The whole circle of helping others, right? It's a full circle experience here by connecting with our featured guest here via his official website, which again, we've included in the description below to schedule your author's school visits for 2026 and beyond. He is a distinguished veteran in the world of children's literature, 30 years in this industry. And of course, you've also seen his work through Oswald, the Backyardigans. He is also, I believe, now adding things up, 1, 2, 3, 4. He is Well, SNL has their Five Timers Club. I don't know if they have that trademark. So we'll just say that he has been a featured guest here on the Children's Book Spotlight series 5 times. He literally goes back with us almost to the origins of this very program when we were just, a little spot on the radar. And then now we're very, of course, blessed and fortunate to host one of the longest running, most successful podcasts in the world of children's literature. Joining us, making his return to the Children's Book Spotlight series after what seems like a little bit of a hiatus to a certain extent, but we have to pace things out accordingly, especially since this man is very busy on his end of things. Award-winning creator, best-selling children's author, and of course, the one who has brought Piccolo to life, Dan Yaccarino, spending some quality time with myself and little Forrest. Dan, it's great to be able to reconnect. I know we reconnected not that long ago, technically at the KidLit TV studios, but it's great to reconnect in this Children's Book Spotlight series fashion. How are things with you today?
Great. And thank you so much for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to sit down and have a great conversation with you about books and writing for kids. It's exciting. I've been doing this for 32 years, actually. And I feel like these days, over the last few years, I feel like I'm more enthusiastic and excited about creating books for kids than ever before. So I don't know. It just stays with me. I mean, you kind of get hooked on it. Once you start, get that book, open that box, it's just nothing like it. It's the greatest feeling.
Well, we're definitely feeling that creative flow and the love that you have of you helping others in the process. We've got a lot to be able to get into. Just some brief housekeeping. If you are new to the Children's Book Spotlight series, one of the many ways that you can pledge your support, not only for Dan Yaccarino, but for us here at PR From the Heart and for the Children's Book Spotlight series. If you haven't had the opportunity to do so, if these messages that we are already sharing, especially tied into the primary theme, the anchor of this Children's Book Spotlight series episode, so to speak, the importance of helping others, subscribe to PR From the Heart's official YouTube channel. Join the now more than 30,000 members of the PR From the Heart family, our loyal YouTube subscribers, and share this very special trolley stop on your favorite social media platform of your choosing. Dan, we were talking in the PR From the Heart green room that obviously in life, change is the only constant in many respects. Well, if you also want to throw in death and taxes, but we don't want to get too morbid here to start off this conversation. But there is so much has changed from when you started in the world of children's literature, doing both writing and illustrating, helping to bring programs to life for children, not only across the country, but also around the world. If you can kind of, for those who are learning about your work who've been, sleeping under a rock or sleeping inside of a cave for a long period of time, could you share with us really where it first began for you, when you knew that you being a creator for kids, where that was really meant to be a large part of not even just your mission and your purpose, but also your dharma? And then just some of the most most noticeable things that you've seen, maybe like the top 2 or 3 things that you've seen that have really changed from when you first began to where we stand as of right now, leading into the holiday season of 2025.
Well, when I started, my first book was published in 1993, and I did write and illustrate that book. The industry was very different back then. I enjoyed doing the books. I had a lot of fun. I came from editorial illustration mostly, so I'd be doing work for magazine, illustration work for magazines, newspapers, book covers. I was hired by ad agencies to create art for, a variety of campaigns and whatnot. And in the very beginning, it intrigued me because growing up, I would write and illustrate these little comic books. And then I was a dear friend of mine who also writes and illustrates books. She encouraged me to meet with an editor, and I did. And they asked me if I had any ideas for books, and I said yes. And I didn't. And I went home and came up with an idea. I didn't know really much about children's books at the time, about how they work, anything about the industry. I'm coming from, a totally different part of the industry, the business as an illustrator. And I guess once I started doing books, and you mentioned the word dharma, I realized after a few years of doing the books, learning about how the whole thing works, but then also realizing more than ever the work that I put out had a life of its own. And also, sort of the immutable laws of the universe, whatever you put out there comes back to you in some form or another. And over time, I started to understand the effect the books had on people and how they integrated them into their lives. And I realized what an awesome responsibility that is, creating content for kids' books or series and different things like that. And slowly but surely over 30 plus years, I do realize that's my purpose. That's why I'm here. I'm delivering mostly, as we discussed in the green room, stories about empathy and examples of empathy. And I just happen to do it through books and series. Other people will do it another way. They do it through whatever work that they do. But I really have come to realize, or feel anyway, that this is my purpose.
Mm.
This is what I'm meant to do. And so I take that responsibility very seriously, given how the others are affected by books. And you have that experience as well, I'm sure.
Yes.
So it's a big deal. It just can't, just sort of toss these things out. These things do affect people, and um, I have been contacted by people over the years that make me realize how profound sometimes the effect has. I'm not going to go into any details, respect for privacy, but I've had some really sort of heartfelt and some even heartbreaking experiences
Mm.
through the work. So I realize how profound it is. We have an awesome responsibility as book creators and promoters and people who press these books into little young hands. And it's really important. And it's probably of the most important literature you'll read in your life.
I'm really glad that you're starting our conversation off by sharing that, because it was probably, I would say, close to 8 years ago when I really first connected with the term custodian. Now, when we think
Yep.
of custodian, we think of someone who, helps us to take out the trash, so to speak. But also at the same point in time, a custodian is someone that is helping to be a caretaker of sorts, and to, in many respects, even preserve and strengthen the integrity of something. So, for example, the sister program of the Children's Book Spotlight series is the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, and been very fortunate for nearly 5 years to review children's books with David Newell, who played the beloved Mr. McFeely on Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. Between that and through the other facets of my work, including the Children's Book Spotlight series at PR From the Heart, I see myself in some small ways being a caretaker of Fred's legacy, so to speak. But it's always important that, and this is one of the really great things that I love about your work, you're also inspiring kids to be their authentic selves. And in a world in which we're, a lot of kids really feel more forced to fit in now more than ever before, reminding them not even just of their inherent worth and their value, but their authenticity is really key. So that term custodians is really important. Now, when I first connected to the work of the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, multi-time New York Times bestselling author, beloved.
Oh, I know who he is.
And
Met him one.
And he used the term dharma, and he felt that, with great wealth comes great responsibility. But oftentimes, if you are given a calling, sometimes it's not the easiest path. It's not the path paved with gelato or rainbows and gumdrops, so to speak.
Yeah.
That's that sense, specifically speaking, and it's very easy to see when someone walks into a bookstore and they see Dan Yaccarino on the shelves, or if they turn on Nickelodeon and they see created by, designed by Dan Yaccarino. It's very easy for them to believe that you're sitting on the 25th floor of a Manhattan high-rise overlooking everyone with no challenges at all whatsoever.
My goodness.
Specifically speaking of note, I really feel that one of the key things that we really need to do, in addition to help others, is to remain humble, to kind of check ourselves at the door, so to speak. That said, what are a few of the specific challenges and difficulties that you've moved through the course of your life, whether it be just kind of early on, even through the course of Piccolo, and we'll of course talk about the book as well in a little bit more in-depth momentarily, but what were some of the noticeable challenges that you experienced, and what were some of those things that helped you to get through to the other side of those challenges?
Well, the work that I do, even growing up, I didn't play sports. I wasn't cool. I would escape into the work and create, essentially do what I'm doing now, create worlds and create characters and a place where I'd love to live in and with characters I'd love to hang out with. But that got me through a lot, teenage years and even adolescence and things like that. But when you're an adult and when you have kids, you're really stretched thin, and sometimes the work was even though it was work, it was a sort of I look at a lot of my illustration work, or when I'm doing it, as almost like meditating.
Mm.
So I kind of can fall into play a little music and fall into the work. So any difficult moment in my life, I'm grateful for the work that I have, or even just the ability to do the work. My dad passed away very early on when he was 56 years old, so he was a fairly young guy, but he did manage to see my first book published, and I know that he was very proud of me about that. But to get through his passing, and I was only in my 20s, I was a young guy. I created a book called Good Night, Mr. Knight, and to tell you the truth, doing those large paintings really helped me process that experience, and just falling into that work and almost, really looking forward to it when I was able to just, clear some time. And at that time, I'd work late at night, and it was very peaceful. But it also gave me a chance to feel close to him and create something that I enjoyed. So oftentimes the work will be the refuge, for me. But also, I work when I'm happy. I work when I want, sort of not think about things. But the work was always there for me, and I'm very fortunate to be able to continue to create stories and characters and worlds for kids. I think because I have that connection with my younger self. And I think a lot of people who create books have that strong connection. It's not abandoned, it's not pushed aside or left behind. I think that the folks that create books really have a strong sense of who they were as children and are able to relate to children on their own level, rather than sort of talking over their heads or talking down to them, but rather talking to them head on at their level. And it is not, a lesser experience. It's very rich and fruitful to be able to sit and talk to a young person who is just starting off in this world, and sometimes they have amazing insight and perspective. They also have no patience. I sat there and I'm reading a book. I read one book to a group of kids, read another book. I'm like, who wants another? Do you want another book? No. I'm like, okay, good night, folks. That's it. Drive safe. There you go. Tip your waitress. So, but I'm grateful for that honesty. They're an amazing audience.
I do give you a lot of credit, because amidst the busyness, amidst your success, you've stayed connected with your inner child. And I feel again that, like, we always ask ourselves, how can we turn the needle? How can we turn the frown upside down? How can we bring more kindness and compassion into the world? And again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. I mean, creativity is big, but if we can go back to the simple things, the building blocks, like connecting with your inner child, helping others, again, we can really get to where it is that we want to be in the process, especially when we're, doing our part to focus on the highest and greatest good of all. We are ready to almost crack the cover and dive into the pages of Piccolo, the brand new children's book that we are spotlighting here on episode number 256 of the Children's Book Spotlight series. Joining us for his 5th appearance here on the program is award-winning creator, best-selling children's author and illustrator, Dan Yaccarino. Again, we encourage all of you, our listeners and viewers, our friends and neighbors, and of course, our fellow shining stars, to head on over to Dan's official website, which we've included in the description below. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for Dan is by, one, eating more gelato in moderation. Everything in moderation is okay. But secondly, leaving a 5-star review on Amazon that lets him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books, again, by leaving the 5-star review for Piccolo or any of his other many, many, many children's books that he's both authored, illustrated, and illustrated. You can see how far Dan and I have grown over the years. We've actually provided the links to 2 of Dan's most recent trolley stops. I think it's actually 3 most recent trolley stops in the children's book Spotlight series. So if you want to learn a little bit more about Dan's work, you can just click any of the links that we've shared in the description below as well. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, if they do not stock their copies of Piccolo, just make that kind recommendation. Don't throw gelato at them. That could get messy. Make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about Piccolo right here on the children's book Spotlight series, so that they should actually stock the book within their library, within their bookstore in the process. And then, of course, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents. One, we know several things. Kids, number one, they love gelato. Number 2, kids love children's books. And number 3, kids love helping other people. If your students need that reminder amidst all the digital distractions, anything that's happening within the context of the current world, especially if you're watching this episode in real time, head on over to Dan's official website, which we've included again in the description below, to schedule your author's school visit with Dan for 2026. Or in 2027. I don't think Dan's going anywhere in any time soon unless he eats a lot of gelato. Again, things in moderation are all good. This is such a sweet and endearing story, and it actually may be your best work to date. And especially, we always wake up every day when we're creating, and it's always important that we can, to a certain extent, not to try to get too ahead of ourselves, it's always a matter of how can I be of greater service and support today? We do live in a society, some people may think of the old, was it with Janet Jackson, what have you done for me lately? There is some of that syndrome in the world, especially on who you align yourself with, so to speak. Before we actually talk about the book and some of the key heartfelt themes and messages, let's go back to the creation of the story, because we always love origin stories here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. You've obviously shared, not only just today, but also in previous trolley stops, about your origin story in terms of where things began for you. Take us back to the origin story of Piccolo, because just having the chance to see both you and Rocco together at the KidLit TV studios, having the chance to actually see the book in hand and mind of things, enjoy it with little Forrest, we'll talk more about that momentarily. It definitely seems like there was a lot of thought, intention, and care that was given to this specific story, maybe even more than ever before. So can you kind of give us a little bit of a backdrop on when the seed was first planted, or I'm trying to think like how gelato was made, whatever the origins of the gelato are. I was going to say the seed of the gelato, but gelato doesn't have seeds. I think that you get what it is that I'm trying to share here.
I get it. I get it. A few years ago, I always have a lot of ideas in my head. And when they sort of form a little bit more solid for me, I'll start drawing or just jotting down some notes. And this began as a sketch of a character. A shrew is, as far as I know, is the smallest mammal on Earth. It weighs not quite as much as 2 pennies. So it is a teeny, teeny, tiny mammal. Also, I was thinking, well, this thing is so small. This creature is so small. And as I mentioned, a lot of my work, the message, the underlying theme is empathy. And so I started thinking about this, how can I take this tiny little character? I want him to do big things. I want him to have a large effect on the world around him, even though he's so small and so tiny. And I am an American of Italian descent. I will call myself that. I don't know, I'm not sure what Italian American means, but I know that I'm American of Italian descent. And I have such love and affection for the culture that I started including that in these sort of thoughts that I had, and doodles of this character could live in some sort of backdrop, which would be this fictitious town in Italy of Bella Città, which just means beautiful city. And then once I had a couple of pieces together in my mind, then I start going, how can I do this? And one of the very first ideas I had, just as this sort of vague umbrella of empathy and kindness, was how about if I created a story about this character who wants to do something for himself, but ends up getting interrupted at every point in helping his friends. And he puts off his own needs and desires to help others. And that's really the whole story, is him throughout the book trying to get back to having gelato, which is the one thing he wanted to do that day. And that's why we keep talking about it, because it's in the book. And he keeps getting waylaid at every point, but he is more than happy to help, which is a repeating, it's a refrain in the book, happy to help. And then it also bookmarks at the end of it. I'm not going to tell you the end of the story. But that's really it. It was a bunch of sort of these stray ideas that started to come together in my mind. And once I had enough pieces, then I really started in earnest on the story. Now, I love Italian architecture. I love Italian car design. Let's face it, they do a lot of things right. And I wanted to present that in the book because in our culture, in the American culture, Italians or Italian Americans are presented in such a way that I don't think it's all that positive. It's a stereotype. So what my little book, what I'm trying to do with this little story and this tiny little character is to sort of broaden that view. So it's not all about making pizza or anything you've seen in the movies or TV shows. It's really the beautiful aspects of the culture. And that's what I wanted to bring forth. But like I said, it's only a backdrop. It's only the flavor of the story. That's sort of the interesting things to look at. And I also include a lot of language that's defined in there, just to give you a few, like buongiorno and ciao and different things like that. And I just figured, not a lot of kids, at least in our culture, have exposure to that. And the things that I feel or I see are so beautiful and so wonderful that I wanted to present that in the book. So that's why it's so full of different, little design elements and different things like that, because it's me expressing my affection for it.
And I can definitely feel that affection. I can definitely feel the care, knowing the fact that really some of the children's books that stand out the most is when there's that healthy balance of fun and learning, especially when kids are learning when they don't even realize that they are learning. Not to say that we have to trick our kids. If it's done for the highest,
sometimes you got to trick them.
sometimes for the highest and best of reasons, like this broccoli tastes really good. And kids, some kids I'm sure will like broccoli. The story itself, there's so many, like knowing the fact that, first things first, give you credit for using the character of a shrew. See lots of books about dogs and cats and horses and ponies and things of that nature, but a shrew, it's just like, again, it's always also about kind of being on the cutting edge, so to speak. So props to you for that. But also the fact it's literally, there's so many different things about the book, even other than connecting to the message of helping others. But that really serves as a strong anchor of sorts, that everything is like healthy offshoots of that. As I mentioned, especially in the world in which we're living in right now, helping others is, we're not seeing, we are seeing people helping others. During times like this, we can literally see the worst of humanity coming out. We've definitely been seeing that. And we've also seen the best in humanity come out. I know this may be the dumb moment of the children's book spotlight series, but talk to us from seeing things through different lenses, working in the world of children's television, working in the world of children's literature, being a family man on your end of things, just being a human being, a fellow neighbor, a kind soul on the path. Speak to the thread of, really, in many respects, how helping others really is the secret sauce.
Well, first of all, helping others helps pull you out of your own self. If you're going through something, the best thing to do is to volunteer or to turn your focus to someone who needs you or needs help. that always, sort of this redirection, and it gives you, to me, it would give, more energy and more perspective as well. So I think that helping others for sure is needed. And as many different ways as I can express that message, I'll do it through shows, through books, or anything else that I do. So I really feel like, again, like I said, this is my purpose to do this. This is the way that I deliver that message. This is how I can affect some small change in people. Do you remember a book you read 17 years ago compared to a book that you read or that was read to you when you were 5? You remember the books you grow up with way more than the books you read as adults.
That's
What
true.
does that tell you? It's embedded in you. So I feel responsible for creating the best work that I can, not only technically, the illustration wise and the sentence structure and all of that, but I feel like I need to present the best message that I can. Having done this for over 30 years, I can see how it permeates out into the world in a small way, sometimes bigger than I realized, and sometimes just in a nice little nod to it. But I hope that my contribution, this is what I do, and this is what I love to do, and I hope I do it well. But I always try to, and you're right, this book, I mean, I don't know if it's my best book. I kind of think it is, but I always try my hardest to create the best work that I can, given that it's going to go out to children specifically. So
I think that one of the things that especially, because a large majority of the listeners and viewers of the Children's Book Spotlight series are those who really impact the lives of children the most. Parents, educators, librarians, and grandparents. And in many respects, especially if you're an empath, if you're a sensitive soul, I know that I've slipped down this slippery slope multiple times. Sometimes you're so focused on helping others. It's like sometimes if you're in the midst of a funk, helping others is the thing to help you get out of the funk or break the monotony, whatever the case might be.
right.
But if you're focused too much on helping others, you could also lose sight of yourself and your mission and your purpose as well too. Could you share with us, specifically speaking, because I really feel it's important to be able to share this. Yes, we need to help other people, 1,000%, but we can't lose track of what it is that we came here to do at the same point in time. We don't necessarily want to sacrifice ourselves 100% entirely, because it's long since been said, and I think it was maybe George Carlin who said this, then he, in one of his comedy specials, and George Carlin, right, is that when you have a full cup, and if you're serving from the top of the cup, you're serving from the overflow. Whereas when you give, and you're at the bottom of the cup and there's no water left, then you're serving from a place that's more of a deficiency, so to speak. So that said, could you really speak to that specific thread about the importance of creating that healthy balance between the two, between, nurturing and being kind and loving to yourself and filling your brim and serving others?
Well, it brings to mind that metaphor of the oxygen masks on a plane. So if you're not, taking care of yourself, you cannot help anyone else. And it took me a while because I'm a bit of a workaholic, but I am learning now at this point in my life how to take care of myself a little bit, or even allow others to do a little caretaking of me. It's hard for me to do that because I want to control everything, and I have to lean back a little bit and remember, if I'm not healthy and I'm not balanced and I don't meditate every day and I don't, think about things and give myself a moment with nothing other than to, either stare at a tree or close my eyes, I'm no good to anyone.
True.
So in the past, I would just plow my way through, a lot of editorial work, or, work for ad agencies and things like that, the stuff that was work that was just based on my ability. They weren't asking too much about, deep, profound ideas or thoughts. But once I got into books, I learned after a few years about how, okay, that's enough. Turn off turn the light out, put the pencils away, you're done for the day. And I have to tell you, for me, that's a big deal. It really is a big deal. Go on vacation,
Don't
Cut
even.
off at around 5 or 6 in the evening. That's enough. I literally say that out loud. That's enough. Turn it off. But I see the value in it because, like I said, if you're not healthy and if you're not well balanced and you don't take a little self-care, you're not going to be able to produce the books that you want to produce at your best. Get good. I mean, it sounds pretty basic. Get a good night's sleep, eat right, don't eat too much junk food. Once in a while, it's okay. But all these things took me forever to learn. And I think I'm in a really good place right now in my life. I really, truly am. And I think the work, it comes out in the work. And now I can just focus and I can turn off when I need to turn off. But it's important because everything that I do in my life and experience, everything we all do in our lives comes out in our service. So if you're, at your end of your rope with time or stress or anything, whatever that thing is you do, you're not going to do a good job on it. And I
True.
have to be on. And so I'll take breaks and I do these school visits and I always make sure I talk to the kids, see what they're into, see what they like. And it's kind of a break for me, actually, to talk to kids and they're my audience. So I really should know what's on their minds, what they're concerned with, what they're fans of, what they don't like also. But it is a balance. And I'm learning at this point in my life, I'm finally learning a little balance. And
I think
I feel like it does come out in the work.
it's better late than never, as the expression goes. And again, just knowing the fact that when you go to schools and you talk to kids, whether it be in person or remotely, knowing the fact that monkey see, monkey do, kids' minds and hearts are like sponges. When they see you talking to them about the importance of helping others, when you're also communicating with parents and educators and librarians, because especially parents and educators and librarians now have more on their plate more than ever before, and they can feel out of whack. They can feel imbalanced. Getting
Yeah.
those healthy reminders. This is one of the great things about children's books is that they're often disguised as books meant for kids, but they're really for us because we still have
Right.
that inner child that lies
That's
within
right.
us. We are beginning
Yeah.
to wind down our time with our featured guest here on episode number 256 of the Children's Book Spotlight series, award-winning creator, best-selling children's author and illustrator Dan Yaccarino. We are fully immersed in his brand new children's book, Piccolo. It is now available. You can, of course, head on over to Dan's official website. You can also head on over to Amazon.com if that's your preferred online vehicle of your choosing. One of the many ways you can pledge your support for Dan is by leaving that 5-star review for Piccolo that lets him know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. If you head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore, and they do not stock their copies of Piccolo, make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. And then, as we just mentioned, for all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can do your part to give that healthy reminder to your students about the importance of nurturing self, but also being kind to others along the way in the process. Again, you can head on over to Dan's official website to schedule your author school visit for 2026 and beyond, because again, as we said, Dan's not going anywhere in any way, shape, or form. He's got many, many, many more stories to create, programs to be a part of as well too. Just a few brief things before we begin to wind down our time here, Dan. We always like to provide, as we mentioned at the onset, some tangible information, not to say that what we haven't provided thus far has not been tangible and useful. It really has. But specifically speaking, sometimes, again, we need those reminders. Oftentimes, we need multiple reminders all at once for us to kind of, again, break the monotony, break the funk. For those who are wanting to take the time to hop on their scooter, whether it be literally or metaphorically, and begin
Mhm.
to help others, but they don't know where to start, where to turn, what are just some simple ways, maybe 3 simple ways that come to mind for us as adults and for kids that we can just say, okay, this is really where it begins when it comes to helping others?
Well, I'd say the just in general, the people that are really stretched thin these days, anyone in education. And so if you're in a position of like my position, it would be something as simple as donating books. It would be something as simple if it's a local school that you can, like in my case, I can walk to several schools. I live in Manhattan, so It's very easy to do that. And that, to me, I remember thinking when I started to do school visits, if somebody visited the school that did anything creative when I was growing up, it would change my life. So very simply, if you know any educators, if you know any grandparents, if you know anyone, I mean, a book recommendation is like the simplest thing you can do if you know them. Donating your time would be amazing, as long as it's something that you are, you feel that you can contribute. In other words, in my case, it would be speaking to kids. It would be donating books. It would be things like that. The thing that you're good at, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And that's your expertise. That's how you can give back to the world. But honestly, I think just good book recommendations overall to anyone that you know that is in contact with kids who have kids, or they, they're educators, or they're even grandparents. They're the big book pushers. So we love grandparents. They love to buy books. We love to, to create books for them. So I would say anyone that has connection with kids, and then as adults, a conversation. We don't necessarily need objects to, to feel like we've done something, a friend, somebody going through a hard time. And the thing that we don't realize is that everyone is going through something right now. Every single person everyone is going through something right now. It may not be apparent to the world. Maybe they want to keep it to themselves. But even the act of going out into the world, and instead of giving some snide remark or something like that to someone, even though you don't want to, just remember they may be going through something. They probably are, or know someone dear to them that's going through something. And that's just basic common courtesy and empathy.
Yep.
And like I said, empathy is the key for all of my work. Before we go too far, I did want to show, and you already saw this, John, this guy. He is beautiful. A dear friend 3D printed Piccolo for me. And I think he's amazing. I just love it. I wanted to just hold this up before I forgot. So,
I
and
appreciate
also the small economy size.
well, it's branding is always key, especially leading into the start of the holiday season.
Yes.
Oftentimes the simplest thing that we can do when it comes to helping others is to just, one of the things that I really love doing here in San Diego, we have one of the most beautiful cathedrals in the world, St. Joseph's Cathedral. They have many areas in the cathedral where you can light candles for people. Yeah. One of my favorite statues is one of Pope John Paul II and Mother Teresa. Being of that age, that really speaks to me. Yep. I'm the dude that at least 2 to 3 Saturdays evening services a month has a list of 30 to 40 people that I'm praying for and lighting candles for. But for me, that's one of my ways that I feel I can help others. It doesn't take much time. It involves just care and presence and focus in the process. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be something, you don't necessarily have to give the check with, 3, 4, or 5 figures to help someone. If you feel guided and inclined to help someone financially, you can absolutely do that. But just the simple things really do mean the most. The 2 ways that we always close out every children's book spotlights, there's technically 3 ways. Of course, we remember the late Fred Rogers. And of course, you've had the connection working with and collaborating with Fred Rogers Productions over the years. You obviously know that Fred was one of his biggest soul attributes was reminding us to help others, to help our fellow neighbors in need. Yep. He even said, I believe this was, from his mom who first told him, always look for the helpers. In times of strife and times of challenge, always look for the helpers. We remember this especially not only through the program, but Fred also did this through his time when he spoke at college commencement speeches, talks across the country, visited sick children in hospitals, most notably when he received his Lifetime Achievement Award at the Daytime Emmy shortly before he passed from stomach cancer. He helped us to remember those who loved us into being. And that was his way of saying, remember those people who took the time to extend a hand when we were feeling down, who needed a lifting, we needed a lifting of our spirits, so to speak, when we were really moving through the most difficult season or seasons of our life.
Mhm.
and then who really reminded us to be able to do the same for those that come into our lives. Who are some of the people that you would like to publicly recognize here on episode number 256 of the Children's Book Spotlight series that have helped love you, Dan Yaccarino, into being?
Well, first and foremost, my parents, because they were my first champions they saw this interest that I had, and they tried to nurture it as best they could with art lessons and plenty of art supplies and all different things like that. So first and foremost, mom and dad. And my children, my two children who are adults now. And I have some dear friends who I don't have a gigantic circle of friends, but the circle that I do have, I love them dearly and I'm there for them. And as you mentioned before, the simplest thing you can do, rather than writing a check or giving someone something or even physically doing something, is a good thought. To take 5 seconds and think about that person you know of who may be going through a hard time. That does, I believe that does something. That energy that you put out there with just your kindness and selflessness for a couple of seconds really could make a difference. I believe that, even if it's within yourself, that you feel like, oh, I turned away from myself for a moment and I'm thinking about, this person in my life. It can all, I mean, in the least it'll help you, the most it'll help that person in some way, shape, or form, because I believe that's a form of energy that you put out there and it will reach them. So yeah, my closest friends, my children, my parents, my siblings, my brother and sister, those are all the people that I would love to, I thank them for being there for me and allowing me to be there for them.
I also want to make mention of all of the characters that you have helped brought to life. In many respects, children who have grown up watching, reading the work of Dan Yaccarino, they're kind of like, members of your family in many respects. They're fellow neighbors on your path.
Yep.
In many respects, through the creation process, they've helped love you into being. So I think it's also important that we take the time to acknowledge those characters as well, to including Piccolo. Fred, in paraphrasing his words, whether those individuals are near or far, whether they're still with us walking this earthly plane or shining down, they're smiling, knowing the indelible impact that you're continuing to make on children, parents, families, educators, and again, as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books. Also, there's something about the Disney magic that kind of complements Fred Rogers and Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. We are reminded through the Disney magic that we have the ability to bring to form and shape our dreams, our desires, our goals, our ambitions, that we can fulfill our wishes, and that in turn and in kind, we can bring to form and shape our dreams, our desires, our goals, our ambitions. We can remind our fellow neighbors, whether it be friends, family members, loved ones, colleagues, just random passersby, those people who are coming into our life, we can remind them that they have the ability to do the very same thing for themselves. We go back to the year 1992. With each passing year, it's more in the rearview mirror. We remember the late Robin Williams. He voiced the genie of the lamp in Disney's iconic classic Aladdin. Since day one of PR from the Heart and the Children's Book Spotlight series, this genie lamp has been with us wherever we go. So we have a little segment called Three Wishes. I think one of the only three automatic disqualifiers, one is that if you've been on the Children's Book Spotlight series more than one time, the three
Yeah.
wishes automatically go for the children of the world, or just the world at large, so to speak. And then, of course, you can't have someone fall in love with you. That has to happen organically, and you can't ask for more wishes, so to speak. But putting these wishes out there into the ethers for the planet, for the children of the world, the collective as a whole, what would those three wishes be for you?
Well, I think that I only need one, really, because it covers a lot. But I think, what I would, if I was able to have a wish granted, I think it would be everyone, rather than focusing on our differences, to focus on how we're the same. And I believe that would change absolutely everything. It would humanize the other in everyone's lives, to understand that they're not that different. And my only wish is to dissolve what is also, speaking of Dharma, to also dissolve the duality in this world, where things are just against each other constantly. It's either factions fighting or at least comparison or pointing out the differences. And rather than do that, find ways that we're the same. Find ways that we connect. And that is my only wish, especially right now in this, era that we're living in, seems to be heightened division, and to drop the duality and to see how we're pretty much mostly the same. That would be my only wish, because that would cover so much for me, in my mind, anyway.
It's long since been said, when one wishes come from one's heart, they have a greater likelihood of coming true. And yes, I feel that us at our core, we have more in common than we realize. Many of us love gelato. Many of us love to travel. We want to see the world. We want to have an awesome red scarf or another favorite color of our choosing. We're more alike than what we think in the process. One of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature over the last 3 years is akin and similar to that of the late movie critic duo Siskel and Ebert. When they loved a movie, they gave it 2 thumbs up. Little Forrest and I have had the opportunity to read and enjoy Piccolo from cover to cover. He wants a little pup cup now that he's actually watched Piccolo. Little Forrest proudly gives 2 paws up for Piccolo. And of course, that is, again, one of the fastest growing endorsements in the world of children's literature, when Little Forrest gives 2 paws up to the children's book that we are spotlighting and featuring on the Children's Book Spotlight series. When we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go, but fear not, there are many more magical trolley stops to come here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. A few housekeeping notes before we part for now. You can, again, check out the description below. We have included the 3 most recent trolley stops that Dan joined us here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. If you're scoring at home and if you're playing bingo, being part Polish, bingo's kind of in our blood, your lucky bingo numbers are 130, 164, 182, and now 256. That is a good bingo on the Children's Book Spotlight series. So again, you'll have the opportunity to watch and enjoy the 3 most recent trolley stops from Dan Yaccarino on the Children's Book Spotlight series. You can head on over to his official website, in addition to Amazon.com. Be sure to leave that 5-star review that lets Dan know that he's doing wonderful and much needed work, again, for children, parents, families, educators, and those who love great children's books. You head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore. If they do not stock their copies of Piccolo, or really any of Dan's other amazing books from over the years in the last several decades, you can, of course, just make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about Dan's work, and Piccolo specifically, here on the Children's Book Spotlight series. To be precise, episode number 256. All educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can do your part to make a greater difference, a significant impact in the lives of your students, to remind them of helping others and the importance of also helping themselves to really create a more empowered next generation. Head on over to Dan's official website to schedule your author school visit for 2026 and beyond as well, too. And again, for all of those Apple TV buffs, again, you can check out Doug Unplugs as well, too. And of course, if you pop in onto YouTube, just plug in Oswald or the Backyardigans. There's many ways you can continue to put out that energy of Dan Yaccarino out into the ethers as well, too. And just knowing the fact that you, too, can make a difference by helping others, just as Dan Yaccarino is doing through Piccolo and the rest of his amazing work in the process. But again, when we hear the trolley, that means that it is time to go. But again, we are almost ready now to head into the start of our favorite season of the year, that is PR from the Heart's holiday season celebration. If you are a children's or a middle grade author and would like to share your inspiring story on a forthcoming edition of the Children's Book Spotlight series, just like Dan here did today, you can head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com, or connect with us via any of our social media platforms that you now see on screen. All at PR from the Heart. We like to keep it simple here. Instagram, Facebook, X, all at PR from the Heart. As we mentioned, the sister program of the Children's Book Spotlight series is the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, where David Newell and I would take the time to deliver heartfelt reviews of the newest children's books from some of the leading names in the world of children's literature and those rising and shining stars in the KidLit community. If you are a children's author and would love for David Newell and I to deliver a heartfelt review of your brand new children's book on a forthcoming edition of the Neighborly Reviews Bookcast, you know where to connect with us. One of the many ways that we love to help others is being of service to all of the great children's authors that are out there. For now nearly 12 years, we have been of service to some of the biggest names in the world of children's literature, ranging from celebrities like the iconic Sharon Lois and Bram, and you remember Skinnamarink Dinky Dink, Skinnamarink Doo, we love you, to John Parra, to Catherine Roy, to those authors whose journeys are just taking flight. If you are a children's author or a middle grade author and are looking for dedicated PR publicity support to be able to create a citywide or national book media tour in the process, you can head on over to our official website, prfromtheheart.com. Schedule your courtesy connection call. Let us see how we can be of service to you, because upon the conclusion of the holiday season, we're already preparing actively for 2026. One final time, again, you can head on over to Dan Yaccarino's official website, which we've included in the description below. Keep the conversation going and flowing, just like little Piccolo on his scooter. He's going and flowing, right? You can keep the conversation going with Dan. Post Children's Book Spotlight Series. Stay connected with him on social media, because, again, many more projects. We'll say this from knowing Dan over the years. He's always working. There's always something that is waiting in the wings. The best way that you can find out what's next for Dan Yaccarino is staying connected with him on social media. Again, if you head on over to Amazon, remember that 5-star review for Piccolo or any of other Dan's amazing children's books as well. You head on over to your favorite local library, your favorite children's or independent bookstore. They are the pillars of our community, and they do not stock their copies of Piccolo. Just make that kind recommendation. Let them know that you heard about it right here on the Children's Book Spotlight Series. And again, lastly, all educators, teachers, principals, librarians, school superintendents, you can schedule your author's school visit with Dan for 2026 and beyond by heading on over to his official website. We want to thank you for your continued support of PR from the Heart, for your continued support of the Children's Book Spotlight Series, for your continued support of KidLit creators, children's book authors, middle grade authors, illustrators, such as Dan Yaccarino, who again are doing wonderful and much needed work for children, parents, families, educators, and as we like to say here on the program, those who love great children's books, for the pillars of our community, local libraries and children's and independent bookstores. But above all else, we want to thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world one final time. We mentioned his name a few times. We always do during the course of a Children's Book Spotlight Series episode. The late Fred Rogers. Did you know that Mr. Rogers weighed 143 pounds through the course of his natural adult life? Now, you might be wondering, little Forrest, Dan, John, as you're fading to black, why are you mentioning this man's natural earthly weight? Fred knew what he was doing. In many respects, Fred Rogers was Piccolo before Piccolo was Piccolo in terms of the message of communicating with others and helping others in the process. There is one letter in I, there's 4 letters in love, and there's 3 letters in you. And so it's a little tip of the cap to Mr. Rogers, little tips of the cap to both little Forrest and Dan Yaccarino, both of who are kind to spend some quality time with us here in our neighborhood. We share our favorite 3 numbers of 243. There are 2 letters in we, there are 4 letters in love, and there are 3 letters in you. So we are reminding you, especially right now as we head on into the holiday season and beyond, we're reminding you of your inherent worth, your inherent value. We're reminding you that you are whole, that you are healthy, that you are complete, that you are loved, that you are special, just the way that you are. And most importantly, that you have the ability to not only help yourself and empower yourself, but you have the ability to help other people in this world as well, too. Raise your hand, by the way, if you have had fun on episode number 256 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Almost forgot that. Hands up from Dan, hands up from myself, hands up from, I should say, paws up from little Forrest. And of course, if it's hands, if a shrew has hands or paws, I'm not necessarily sure, but definitely Piccolo is echoing his sentiments. We, of course, that's just the ways in which that we're being reminded that mission accomplished, job well done, when we see the hands and the paws up on screen in the process. This has been such a wonderful trolley stop. We are looking forward to many more magical trolley stops. Lastly, if this message has helped you, the message of Piccolo, the theme of helping others, any of the things that we have communicated through the course of this trolley stop together, one of the many ways you can also pledge your support for Dan, for Piccolo, for PR from the Heart in the Children's Book Spotlight Series. Subscribe to PR from the Heart's official YouTube channel. Join the now, I should say, more than 30,000 members of the PR from the Heart family. And that those are our loyal YouTube subscribers. And again, share this very special trolley stop that you have enjoyed. That is episode number 256 of the Children's Book Spotlight Series. So once again, for Little Forrest, for Dan Yaccarino, for myself, John Masiulionis, thank you once again for spending some quality time with us here in our neighborhood. And we look forward to seeing you for our next trolley stop as we officially kick off PR from the Heart's holiday season celebration. Thank you for helping us to walk home the children of the world, our fellow friends, our fellow neighbors, and our fellow shining stars. Goodbye for now.
Bye.